All right, you guys are really going to like this. I just had an interesting back and forth with a right-wing journalist from the Daily Caller named Amber Duke. Now, we also did guest call-ins, and a dude named Chris came in and owned the MAGA journalist. It was a really interesting interaction, and I want to show it all to you. So make sure you drop a like, make sure you subscribe to join the movement, and without further ado, check this out.
The facts on the ground in Boulder. Just how do you feel about what happened as a signal event in America's history or in the current moment?
God, it's so disturbing, especially in concert with just a few weeks ago, the assassination of the Israeli diplomat and the embassy staffer in Washington, D.C. In this case, you have, again, another guy who engaged in a targeted killing. He had apparently been planning this attack for quite some time, knew that these pro-Israel protesters gathered every Sunday in Boulder for their walk or their march, whatever you want to call it, and had employed some kind of homemade flamethrower device, as well as 14 Molotov cocktails they found in his car. And the images of these elderly individuals, all of the victims were over the age of 55, just in the fetal position on the ground. The descriptions from bystanders is so beyond horrific. And also the fact that this guy had overstayed a visa that was granted to him during the Biden administration. He was given a work permit even after overstaying his visa, which he also overstayed. So I think obviously the Trump administration has a lot of fodder from this, both on the deportations of some student visa holders, as well as the mass deportation, getting rid of anybody who is in the country illegally. This guy hit like two birds with one stone, essentially, with everything that the Trump administration has been saying in terms of deriding the left's policies.
Adam, general thoughts.
Amber is very correct about the repeated pattern of anti-Semitism manifesting all throughout America. It could be a function of a lot of things. I don't know what the case is with Solomon, but I think algorithms are right now perpetuating a lot of anti-Semitism. We're seeing uniquely impressionable and easily radicalized people going out in the streets and doing these things over and over. Like Aaron Bushnell, remember him a few years back? I feel like since then we've seen a lot of in-person events in the United States. And I'm not going to say that I think our enemies benefit a lot when they can stoke fear and anger in our algorithms and have stuff like this manifest. He did enter in 2022 on a B2 visa, and then his work permit expired in March. The Trump admin did not deport him, but Trump still came out immediately with a post saying he came in through Biden's open borders, which is a weird, tricky way to say he actually had a visa, right? And Trump did the same thing when there was a New Orleans attack on January 1st. Someone ran through a parade, and I think within hours, Trump tweeted out, this was an illegal person who came over the border. That wasn't even true in that case either. So Trump immediately tries to divert blame and weaponize it when I think overall there's a conversation about anti-Semitism that's more important here than whether Biden caused it.
Amber, is it fair for President Trump to say this is a Biden problem?
Well, if the guy is overstaying a visa and then you respond not by removing him, but by giving him permission to work here, that seems pretty directly responsible to me.
Adam?
Why didn't Trump remove him, though, if he was on the government's radar?
What's the White House's perspective on this?
Well, FBI Director Kash Patel is absolutely right. And the president just put out a very strong statement condemning this attack. This terrorist came into our country under the previous administration. Joe Biden's administration foolishly gave him a tourist visa and that allowed him to unlawfully remain in our country. This individual should have been deported. Instead, he was welcomed here. And now, 3 years later, after coming to this country under Joe Biden's administration, he is lighting Jewish people on fire who were simply trying to peacefully pay respect to the hostages in Israel. This absolutely is an act of targeted terrorism. The FBI and the Department of Justice are investigating it as such, and the president is going to ensure that this individual is held to the fullest extent of the law. And not just this individual, but any individual, especially illegal criminals who engage in acts of terrorism, will be held accountable under this president.
Adam, did she say anything you disagree with or question?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit late to hold him accountable. I mean, yeah, you can now, but it's just she's being performatively angry because they failed to deport someone and it looks bad, like Amber said. I mean, it goes against what they're saying. Here's the thing. I think it's really fun and easy to play the blame game and say like, oh, Caroline Leavitt is wrong about it being Biden. It's actually Trump's fault. But overall, there's like a deeper problem with anti-Semitism that is bubbling up beyond which administration is in power.
True. Amber.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If we're talking about your assertion that anti-Semitism is the deeper problem, though, then why do you have the issue with getting rid of radical students on campus who don't have any right to be studying in the U.S.? It's a privilege. And if they abuse that right, or that privilege rather, then send them home. You can't be here supporting a terrorist group.
Didn't the Trump admin end up going back and end up like giving them their visas back?
They're complying with the courts, which I assume is what you would like.
Okay,
right?
so if the
because
Trump
of
admin,
separation of powers,
if the Trump admin proved that there were repeated anti-Semitic like actions coming out of these students, why were the visas given back by the courts?
Well, the courts didn't rule on the whether or not the students were anti-Semitic. They said that the Trump administration didn't have a right to do it, which I obviously disagree with, and the Trump administration is appealing that decision.
What proof was there that the students were anti-Semitic?
Well, that'd be a case-by-case thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so Trump en masse violating the due process clause strips all of these student visas away, and you're just going to say that now it's a case-by-case basis. I don't know. It's just like,
is there? He didn't violate their due process.
You make a good point. I mean, all right, let's bring folks in. Chris is from Georgia. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back, sir. Happy to have you here. Tell folks what's on your mind for Amber and for Adam.
Yes, I've got a comment and I've got a question for Amber. My comment is that trying to make this guy in Colorado part of the immigration problem is faulty logic. He came on a visa, a tourist visa. That's part of a process. He got a work permit after that. That's part of a process. So the fact that has nothing to do with open border policy. And Amber made the comment that this was totally preventable. Is there some way we have of knowing when you apply for a tourist visa that you might be a crazy terrorist? No, there's not. So it wasn't preventable because we can't guess who the crazy people are. My question for Amber is, I think I saw on your X page that you were celebrating Trump's challenges to the South African president when he visited, where he showed the video and the pages showing about the bad treatment of white Afrikaners. Was that you that posted that?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, have you apologized for the fact that the BBC and Reuters have clearly debunked at least half of what he said? Or do you want to stick to that misinformation that Trump spewed out into the universe?
And Chris asked that. And Chris asked that with peace, love, and understanding overflowing from his heart.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll take the first part, if you don't mind, on the immigration point. So the problem here is the process that you're referring to failed, because if someone overstays a visa and is illegally in the country, they should not be rewarded with a work permit. And if he had been removed at that point, instead of getting access to work here, then it would have been preventable. No, you can't tell if someone is necessarily going to commit a crazy violent act like that, but you can prevent all of these crazy violent acts by illegal immigrants by either not letting them in the country in the first place or removing them with expedited removal when they break the rules and don't follow the proper procedures for getting legal status. And instead,
Chris?
the Biden administration gave him a promotion, essentially.
Chris.
Yes.
What do you think of Amber's retort?
I believe that it is probably a fairly normal practice applied in many cases to let people get a work permit. So I'm not sure after their visa expires, I'm not sure that's a failure in the process per se.
Adam, anything you want to say about all this?
One final point.
Yeah.
How can Biden be responsible for letting Solomon in if Biden was executed in 2020, according to Donald Trump?
What reposts on truth don't mean endorsement. How about that?
Did it say that in his bio, or is he the president?
I think that's implicit. Doesn't say it in my bio, but I retweet stuff all the time that I don't endorse.
Got to be careful. I mean, he's a president. He's retweeting schizophrenic conspiracies.
I agree with you. Let's get Amber on our side on this one. Amber, do you agree that the president shouldn't be reposting things like that?
Yeah.
I wish he just didn't repost, because his reposts are usually pretty wacky.
Peter, welcome in.
Trump and Vance, they both can go on these like podcast platforms and like Theo Von and Rogan and that kind of thing. But I think Vance misses a little bit of that charisma element. I'm just kind of curious, like for Adam, coming from kind of more Dem side, I just like, how do you compare the kind of charisma of Trump versus Vance? And like, is that going to be a big problem for Vance come 28 or not? Like, I think he can go on podcasts, but he's no Trump. Like, he's not as funny as Trump. So it's kind of my
In my
question.
opinion, a lot of Trump's power comes from the fact that his cult of personality can oftentimes primary or at least weaken any Republican congressman or congresswoman. So if JD Vance doesn't have that same cult of personality wrapped around his finger, he may not have the same leverage over the Republican Party. But when it comes to charisma, obviously Trump is a powerhouse on camera. This dude knows how to take advantage of headlines. He knows how to just his stage presence is very, very unique. And JD Vance oftentimes seems like he's trying to model Donald Trump. I remember there was a JD Vance one time pointing at the press and made the crowd boo the press. But his heart just wasn't really in it in the same way Trump's heart is in it. So I don't think he has the same charisma or same. Yeah, I think the charisma will be a problem for JD Vance. But that being said, he basically just reverts back to the mean, to like the average Democrat. He's like a Democrat from 2005 with charisma, whereas Trump is just his own thing, in my opinion.
Press is generally biased against Donald Trump, but he Truth Social reposts the thing about Joe Biden was replaced by, what did he say they were replaced by robots?
He was executed and replaced by a robot, I think. This one actually might be true, though.
Yeah. Just this dude, Amber, this dude's level of sarcasm, it surpasses my own. Why is that not getting more attention? And I know one explanation, and maybe you'll say it's the only explanation, is that Trump does so many things like this that we become a nerd to it. But there's got to be more to it than that. What would you say explains the president of the United States doing something that irresponsible and it not getting very much coverage?
He's the king of the troll. I mean, he loves this kind of stuff because he loves the reaction that he gets. And so maybe the media is finally wising up and not giving him the reaction. Yeah.
So Adam, let me take the devil's advocate position. Trump sees that and he thinks it's funny. So it's not a troll. It just, he thinks it's funny. I retweet, funny, pictures of cats doing things. Now, I'm not president, but he's a citizen. If he wants to retweet things he thinks are funny, is that okay? Or he shouldn't do it?
As a president of the United States, I would say you probably should not be posting stuff when you already have an impressionable audience. Like, I would make the argument that Truth Social is likely filled of his most loyal supporters, meaning these are people who believe what he says and what he reposts. These are probably impressionable people in the first place. So the president of the United States, in my opinion, should be a little bit more careful with what they repost or what they say on social media. Yeah.
All right. Last question. In the realm of the possible, not the likely, but the possible, what's the best thing for the planet Donald Trump could accomplish this year, Amber?
For the planet? Oh,
yeah.
Not for America?
No, for all of the world.
That's very globalist of you, Mark. For all of the world, I would love to see an end to a lot of these conflicts, the Russia-Ukraine war, what's been going on in the Middle East. I think that would probably be the best thing he could do globally.
Adam?
Yeah, probably ending the Russia-Ukraine war in a favorable position for Ukraine.
Who will leave power first, Zelensky or Putin? Amber?
Zelensky.
Obviously. What kind of question is that? Leave power?
Yeah.
As if Zelensky's holding on to power?
Well, I don't know.
His constitution says they can't hold an election during wartime. They literally would not be able to do that right now.
Well, he could quit.
Right now? Why would he quit? Why would he destabilize an already destabilized country when he's like,
I don't know. He might be tired.